Welcome back to me reading Transported, a Wings of Fire story, fanfiction. This time, chapter 20. As usual, if this is your first time watching this little series, I recommend you to watch the previous chapters or read them yourself. And I apologize in advance. I'm feeling sick as fuck, and I feel like a truck has hit me. So if I sniffle a bit, cough a bit, you'll know why. Let's begin. This chapter's name is A Dramatic Awakening. Daniel saw the world around him begin to fade. He was losing his grasp on reality and on life. There was nothing he could do. Trapped by kraken-sized tentacles, probably over 800 meters below the surface. Even if he did, by some miracle, escape the entity's grasp on his body, he would most certainly drown before he reached solid air again. That is it. This is it, my cat. This is it, my guess. Daniel thought with defeat. Never expected to die in a fantasy world, but I guess life is full of surprises. It was funny. Despite his current situation, the only thing that he had on his mind was happiness. A soft smile crossed his face as his world finally faded to darkness. He didn't know what to expect from it. Death, that is. It was a mysterious thing. Some people feared it. Some people embraced it. But you never knew what it truly was until you passed the line. Although I'm pretty sure you're not still supposed to be conscious. Daniel thought. Nothing but a black screen of nothingness surrounded him. He couldn't see anything, not even his own body. If I even still have one, that is, Daniel thought grimly. He must admit that if this was it, and if death was just an endless darkness for you to be alone with your thoughts, it's not exactly a great ending, but at least I'm not burning in a pit in hell. Daniel looked, or tried to look around at his black surroundings. But it was strange. He felt his field of vision turn, as he wanted it to. It don't feel like he was attached to anything. Like his eyes or consciousness was just floating in place. Like a ghost. Am I really dead? Is this it? Or is there something else? Daniel was conflicted. He didn't know what to believe, or what was really happening. However, soon, a familiar voice could be heard in the distance. Hurricane! Wake up! Don't you leave us! The voice was very faint, but there was no mistaking who it was. The faint voice of Kinkajou could be heard through the black void. It wasn't clear from where her voice was coming from, but more of his friends' voices followed soon afterwards. Please, please work, spoke the distant voice of Turtle. Calm down. You'll be all right. A much quieter voice said. Daniel couldn't pick up who it was, but he guessed it was probably Moon, since the other female dragons didn't have such a soft voice. Daniel listened to these voices for a while, not knowing if they were actually real or just in his mind. Soon, however, Daniel spotted a distant spark among the darkness beyond him. A small white spot of what appeared to be light sparkling on in the distance, like a lonely star in the air in the black area of outer space. A possible glimpse of hope. A possible exit. Daniel stared back at the white dot among the darkness. It appeared to be growing larger by the second. Either that, or he was unintentionally moving towards it. More of his friends' voices echoed within the darkness once again. Hey, joke's over. You should be up by now. Or, hey, joke's over by... Sorry. Hey, joke's over. You should be up by now. The slightly panicked voice of Keebly said. Daniel was slightly worried now. What does he mean I should be up by now? Daniel looked back towards the light. It was now bright as day, and as such, he had to look away in order to avoid being blinded. Well, At least he tried to look away. But it seemed like the dark world he was trapped in began to brighten. Everywhere he looked, there was more and more brightness, and he had no way to avoid it. His vision became disoriented, as nothing but white brightness surrounded him. Eventually, however, the white void slowly faded into the appearance of a gray stone ceiling, as well as well the faces of 5 dragons staring down at him. "He's awake!" King Giles squealed, her scales changing colors to a bright pink and yellow, which gave Daniel an eyesore. Forced to switch his attention to avoid burning out his retinas, he looked over at a particular sandwing, who just happened to have a bright crimson blush across his snout. Oh boy. Keebley quickly turned away in embarrassment. Keebley quickly turned away in embarrassment when he met his eyes. At first, Daniel was confused, wondering what was wrong with his sandwich friend. That was until he remembered Winter's words about a supposed crush he had on him. Well, I guess that confirms it, though it didn't even look like he was trying to hide it. How strange, Daniel thought, as he watched a crimson-faced Keebley look away. His attention was cut short when the face of Star came almost inches away from his own. This made him jump slightly, although his slight fear faded as he stared back at her. Now being able to study her face properly, he had noticed how beautiful she actually was. Oh boy, there was an almost perfect balance between her yellow scales and ice blue spikes along her back and slightly on her face. And what more, is that Daniel found himself staring back into her deep blue eyes, which stood out due to the yellow facial scales around them, which just made them that much more mesmerizing. However, by far the most gorgeous part of it all was the fact that she had a yellow pupil instead of a black one. Daniel didn't know how it was possible in regards to genetics. However, it made no difference to him. The pupil looked beautiful on its own, like a small speck of gold in the center of a large blue ocean. The only thing that Daniel could think of at that moment was one word: wow. Now Daniel felt his own crimson blush form on his cheeks and snout. Noticing this, he suddenly panicked internally, knowing he might have gotten caught, but no one seemed to notice. Must be because of the red scales, Daniel thought. Thank the Lord. He gave out a sigh of relief before, in the calmest way possible, said to Star, "Can you get off me now?" It took a moment for the message to get through to her, but she understood a very faint blue blush of embarrassment came over her snout as she jumped off of him. "Oh, no, I'm so sorry." "Nah, don't worry about it," Daniel responded, his blush finally fading away like it was never there. But his heart skipped a beat when he realized something. Wait a minute, Daniel thought. He turned to look at a particular Nightwing who was sitting just next to him. Moon. She looked back at him with the calmest expression. She shot him a very, very slight smirk, indicating to Daniel that she knew. Ah, crap, Daniel thought, but he was cut short when he felt something in his throat. Without hesitation, he snapped his head towards the mouth of the cave, which just happened to be right next to him. He jumped up quickly, startling his friends, before he leaned over the edge of the cave's mouth. Whoa, are you okay, Hurricane? Turtle asked worriedly. Daniel ignored his question. He couldn't speak. Whatever wasn't in his throat prevented it. Tears formed in his eyes as he started to gag slightly. What? Star was about to ask, but she was cut off midway through her question. Water. Lots of water came rushing out of Daniel's mouth. He coughed as more water came out from his lungs, and it took a solid 15 seconds before all the water left his system. Look, hydrate or dihydrate, but sometimes too much water is too much water, okay? All right, continue with the story. By the end of it, his throat was in deep pain. A large, damp puddle of sand had formed in front of Daniel's face. Small droplets hung from the sides of his snout as he finally managed to breathe in some fresh air. After God knows how long. Ugh, Daniel groaned as he finally got himself on all fours again. What was that? Keeley asked concerningly. I don't think throwing up water in the desert of all places is a good sign. It's not, Daniel responded, letting out another small cough as he turned to look at him. But I do have an explanation. Daniel was about to speak, but stopped himself mid-sentence when he spotted the weapon on Keebley's arm. Keebley, being the quick and vigilant dragon he is, spotted this immediately. But he didn't have time to explain before Daniel spoke. Keebley, where did you get that from? And more importantly, why is there blood on it? Daniel was now on the edge, was now the one set on edge. What happened while I was gone? Were they attacked? Did someone get hurt? He only then noticed behind Keebley was his other two friends. Colonel was cradling over a fallen winter. What really made him panic was when he saw the liquid pool around his body. From afar, it didn't look like much, but he knew exactly what it was. He'd seen it firsthand in his battle with Star. He knew exactly what it was, considering the substance covered his own scales in the aftermath. Okay, all right, nitpick here, but the reason why we blush is because all the blood goes into the facial area. So so Icewing blood is blue, right? So wouldn't their blushes be blue? Just thinking of that. Stupid nitpick, I know, but hey, I like stupid nitpicks. I think they're humorous. All right, let's continue. Winter was unconscious in his own blood. Oh, we run into our first typo here. We love typos. They make us laugh. A-N-S. Ants. This only made Daniel wonder as his heart rate started to race. What happened here? Daniel fell back towards the side of the cave wall. Despite the multiple dragons talking to him, he was unresponsive. All he could stare at what oh wait, hold on a second. All he could stare at was what appeared to be Winter's lifeless body, chilling there in the not so far off distance. He was in a sort of panicked trance. Nothing seemed to get through to him. Wait, what? Nothing seemed to get through to him. He. We love typos here. They make us laugh. Nothing seemed to get through to him. He just stared into the background. His mind was a raging blizzard of emotions and thoughts. Though N-O-N. We forgot an E at the end. But we love typos here. They make us laugh. Though none of them showed on it. Oh, that's a double. We love typos here, especially doubles. Them showed on his face. What happened? How did this happen? I shouldn't have left. I can't even keep a promise. The thoughts went on and on, with each one getting worse than the last. However, it wasn't just Daniel. It was everyone. Everyone's thoughts were completely messed up, ranging from Kikajaw's, I could have done something to help out, to Keeley's, I should have seen this coming. Why am I so useless? Moon clenched her head in a sort of pain. Everyone's thoughts were too overwhelming. She was about to snap. She was done with everyone's thoughts as they pierced into her mind. Stop, stop, stop it! I think I just. Well, let's continue. This could be really weird for my roommates. Let's keep going. Moon screamed. She covered her ears in an attempt to drown out the thoughts of others. But it made no sense. But it. Wait, what? Thoughts of others, but it as no use. Huh? But it as no use. We love typos here that make us laugh. But it as no use. This snapped Daniel out of his trance, looking around at the nearly crying Moon. He was slightly puzzled at why she was acting that way. Moon, are you okay? Keebly asked as he moved closer in an attempt to comfort her. Moon didn't react to this. She just clenched her head tightly as she finally let some tears drop down to the floor. What's wrong, Moon? King Zhao questioned, walking up. walking up and trying to talk to her. She covered up her ears like she was trying to block out some imaginary blaring noise. The others tried to reason with her, but Moon ignored their words. Daniel's puzzlement was still printed across his face as he tried to figure out what was wrong with her. However, the confusion did not last long, as Daniel finally realized what was going on a few moments later. Wait, she's being overwhelmed by her thoughts. Putting two and two together, he jumped up and grabbed Turtle's armband, which was just sitting on the floor for some reason. Turtle caught onto this and tried to stop him. Hey, what are you doing? Turtle demanded, as he tried to take the stolen jewelry back from Daniel's claws. Sorry, dude, I'll give it back in a second, Daniel called before he turned around and ran towards where Moon was now having a mental breakdown. He looked at the armband. For some reason, Daniel wasn't able to turn it in any shape or form. It was like the armband was locked in place, always pointing at him. What? I don't remember this happening. Was it possible that Turtle enchanted it? Daniel pondered for a moment on the matter, but he let it slide. He needed to get the armband to Moon. Daniel looked back down to the piece of jewelry. The smooth black Skyfire rocks glinted back at him as they reflected the late morning sun. He soon reached where Moon was sitting. Pikachu and Keebly sat next to her as they tried to reach out to her, but she was unresponsive. Well, of course she would be. She's probably got about a dozen thoughts running through her mind at the moment. No way you're getting someone in that situation to concentrate. Daniel rudely pushed past Keebly and Pikachu, quickly feeling bad afterwards, but he shrugged his feelings off. Hey, Moon, Daniel said softly as he placed the band on her scales. He didn't know ID. I'd. We love typos here. They make us laugh. He didn't know she had to actually be wearing or hiding the Skyfire. Wearing or hiding. Huh? Whatever. Let's keep going. The Skyfire for its effects to work, but he assumed otherwise when Moon stopped trembling after he did so. Hey, can you hear me clearly? Are the thoughts gone? Daniel asked, hopefully. Moon just looked up at him with bewildered eyes, before slightly nodding, indicating to him that they were gone. Whew! Daniel let out a sigh of relief as he sat back, the armband still in contact with the Nightwing scales. We're all good here, Daniel called out to the others, who looked just as puzzled as Moon did. Just then, Pearl entered the conversation. Hey guys, I finished patching Winter up. What'd I miss? She looked at Daniel and then smiled. Good to see you awake. Pearl said, before adding, speedster. Dale smiled back at her, guessing that he got a new nickname for himself. But his smile faded, just slightly, as he scanned all the other dragons' bewildered faces. He knew what was coming next, and sighed deeply, thinking it was probably for the best anyways. Well, looks like I got a lot of explaining to do. And that is the end of this chapter. Except for, as always, the GigaChat author graces us with his presence in the form of an author's note at the very bottom. Hello, wonderful wheeler readers. This was supposed to be a much longer chapter, but I soon realized how much I would be writing if I went through with my original plan. So I decided to just cut it off here. The next chapter will have the story move forward. So if it looks like it's not going anywhere so far, don't worry. I have it sorted. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this much shorter chapter. I'll see you guys soon. Peace. All right. Besides the nitpicks I said earlier, so our GigaChat protagonist has found his love interest. I think that's it. He escaped the big bad from his nightmare world, and now he's going to explain, well, some of the stuff. He's going to of his of who he is. You know, I almost didn't make this video. Because, man, I feel really fucking sick. But the grind stops for no one. And oh yeah, the author started to write again. He got through his finals, which good for him. Yeah, I think that's it. See you next time.